Before we get to today's stories, I would like to say a disclaimer. The stories presented in this video delve into themes that might be unsettling for some viewers, including graphic descriptions and eerie scenarios. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. These tales aren't for the faint of heart. If my chilling content sends shivers down your spine and leaves you craving more, please subscribe to my channel. Your support means the world to me. Hi all. This is a post I never thought I'd be making. Let me provide some context. My roommates and I live in an older building where the upstairs was renovated into a 3-bedroom apartment. There were 3 of us living here until about November. Our third roommate moved out due to an opportunity she was pursuing in a bigger city hours away. It is now just my best friend and I living here. It's important to note that, although renovated, our building is old and has a very weird setup. The 2 bedrooms my roommates live in are in the very back of the house, and our kitchen, living room, dining room, bathroom are at the front. My bedroom is in the middle, and my roommates have to walk through it to get to the living room, bathroom, kitchen, etc. So they walk through frequently. Several months ago, while our third roommate was still here, this creepy thing happened one night. I went into my bedroom to get ready for bed and noticed some red droplets on the ground in this spot in my room. I was very confused and ended up getting a rag to wipe it up. Of course, I smelled it, and yep, 100% blood. Our third roommate was on her period and bleeds super heavy. My best friend and I were a bit freaked out, but reasoned that she must have somehow accidentally dripped some blood if her pad was leaking, etc. while walking through my room to her room. Of course, we didn't say anything more about it because we did not want to embarrass her. Fast forward to present day. It's been about 3 months since it last happened, and I wake up this morning to blood once again on the floor of my room in the exact same spot. I cannot logically reason anything this time. I am on my period, but actively had tight leggings on for the entire day yesterday. There is just not way that I leaked the amount of blood on the floor. My best friend is not on her period, nor was she really even home yesterday. Our third roommate no longer lives here. I was home for most of the day yesterday and was even cleaning up my room. I know for a fact the blood spot wasn't there. I left at around 5 p.m. to go eat with my family. I get back around 10, go into the bathroom to get ready for bed, change beside my bed, then get into bed. The blood spot is on the complete opposite end of my room. I didn't even walk over there upon getting home. Like I mentioned, my roommate wasn't really home for the day either, and even when she got home and walked through my room to go to hers, the blood spot is not in the walking path to her room. It's off to the side where she wouldn't walk. We have no pets. We don't have a pest problem, though we have had a mouse in the past. I am just absolutely freaked out over what this could be. Saw a little boy who disappeared. I visited my brother after several years of not seeing him and his family. He lives out of state and he moved around a lot with his family for work. I was going to be in his town for a work conference. I called him up and said I'd be driving to his town if I could come by and visit. He said of course, and if I could bring my puppy to hang out with his 3 kids while I was at the weekend-long conference. He has 3 kids. 2 girls and 1 boy, ages 7 female, 8 male, and 13 female. The ages and numbers of kids are important. On the day of, I arrive at my brother's house with my puppy early in the morning since I needed to be at the conference at 8:30 a.m. This is during winter break from school, so the kids were home, if you're wondering. My brother and his wife were up and 3 kids were playing in the living room. The kids that were playing in the living room consisted of 2 boys who looked around 9-year-old and a 10-year-old, and the 7-year-old girl who was the youngest. I thought to myself, that's strange. I thought he had 2 girls and 1 boy and 1 girl was much older. But I don't say anything because I hadn't seen him in like 15 years since they lived in another state for that whole time and just recently moved closer to me. I thought I had remembered incorrectly. I sat in the living room and talked to my brother and sister-in-law while the kids played, and every once in a while they would come up to me and talk and play or tell a story, etc., and they were all over the puppy. One of my brother's sons is autistic with a speech issue, but the other boy kept covering his mouth and pushing him playfully. I thought this was just children horsing around. The daughter came up to me and took my hand and led me to the kitchen to show me the backyard. We looked through the window of the back door. She said, "This is where I'll take the dog to go to pee later." The other two kids followed us to the kitchen. The back door is one that opens to the back stairs that lead into the basement. When we were done looking outside, we walked back into the living room, but one of the boys didn't follow us back. My dog stayed back too and started to bark in the direction of the back door and the back stairs. I figured the little boy had gone downstairs or something, and that my dog was just barking at him. I went to sit in the living room for a few more minutes while the two remaining kids played with the dog. Before I left my brother's house, we agreed that my brother and his wife would meet me at the hotel for lunch later. At lunch, my sister-in-law talked about her kids and how I didn't get to see their oldest daughter, who was still sleeping when I was there. She said I would be able to see her on Sunday when I pick up my dog. My jaws dropped. I said to them, "I think I saw 3 kids there this morning." My sister-in-law looked confused and said she had a miscarriage a few years ago. My brother told me to stop talking about stuff like that. I've never brought it up again. My mom's phone magically reappeared. Okay, so in November 2024, I had a hair appointment to dye my hair, and the person who usually dyes it is my cousin, and I was changing the color to pink, and the pink I chose is somewhat vibrant, and it was better for me to choose this box dye. I have a lot of hair that's really thick, and we needed 2 more boxes, and you can find it at your local Walgreens or something. And my mom went and she FaceTimed me, and it wasn't there. So she went to Kroger's, it's a major grocery store chain in the South, and she called me saying she found only 1 box, and she was going to Walmart to find it, since it's close. And that was that. 35-ish minutes later, she came home in a panic, empty-handed, unable to find her phone. She tends to lose things a lot, so we checked the car inside and out, and it wasn't there. And I checked the location. It said it was in the Kroger parking lot. So I let her use my iPad to locate it, since it was a block away, and she couldn't find anything. She had to reorder a new phone. She had insurance, thankfully, because we had to drive out of state to pick up my uncle for Thanksgiving due to my city not having a major airport. Later that next week, and she got a new one in time. Fast forward 2 weeks ago, she was deep cleaning her room, and she finds the phone just laying on the dresser. Keep in mind, it said it was in a parking lot. And the last time she called me on the same phone, she was in the store. And the odd thing is, she never had an iPhone before the same phone. And it definitely wasn't mine because we had the same looking one. But mine is very different. And I was holding it when she found it. She searched her clothes and everything for it to show up randomly on her dresser, and my mom loves random phone cases. When I just like basic ones, and she had agent blue case on her with flowers. And when she found her phone, it had the random glitter one she didn't use anymore, and she turned on the phone and load, and behold, it still had the screen from us turning it off, in case somebody stole it and appeared to have water damage, and she's always been careful to not drop it, never water or anything. Can somebody explain this to me? I'll apply pictures soon. It's just very early right now, and this happened a couple weeks ago. And I'm recovering from wisdom teeth surgery. I'm sorry for run-on sentences. It's a bad habit of mine due to autism. Thanks for understanding. Medication glitch. So Monday morning, I was running late for work, and I ran up the stairs to take my medicine before leaving. I have one of those daily medication organizers, so I open up Monday, dump the 3 pills out on my hand that I take daily, and start heading back down towards the stairs. Side note, but every day it's the same 3 pills. One is huge, the others are small, one white and square, and one round and orange. I'm in a rush and kind of carelessly throw the pills in my mouth as I'm about to walk down the stairs, and I hear one of them bounce down the stairs. It was clear as day and happened immediately after I tossed them into my mouth, so I knew that I had dropped one of the pills. I start searching for it and cannot find a pill or anything on the stairs or anywhere near them. I'm in a rush, so I decide to just head upstairs to grab another one and plan to deal with finding it later. I walk upstairs and check my tongue to see which pill it was and notice all three are still on my tongue. I'm like, okay, weird, but once again I'm in a rush, so I swallow the pills and rationalize it as maybe I kicked something else small like an earring back down the stairs at the same exact time I went to take the pills, and it was just a wild coincidence. Well, today, 2 days later, my fiancé brings a pill to me and tells me he found it on the stairs. It's my small square white pill I take every day. I do not typically take my medication anywhere besides the bathroom, so there's really no explanation for why it would be on the stairs. I'm a clean person, and our house is always pretty much spotless. Also, our stairs are black, and the pill is white. I feel like it would have stood out if it was there the whole time, and I would have seen it. Plus, it was on my tongue. About a week ago, I made myself dinner from a meal kit. The ingredients they provided were salmon, broccoli, grape tomatoes, shallots, olives, garlic, parsley, and a lemon. I chopped the broccoli and put it in a bowl. I chopped the grape tomatoes in half and put them in another bowl. I diced the shallots and put them in the bowl with the tomatoes. I drained the olives, pouring the brine into the same bowl. I chopped the olives in half and put them in the same bowl. I grated the garlic and put some in the bowl. I chopped the parsley. I juiced the lemon and didn't bother removing the seeds. Through all this, I saw no unusual seeds or large chunks of anything. I cooked the salmon on a frying pan. While the fish was cooking, I melted butter in a smaller pan with some shredded garlic and then added the lemon juice and parsley. After the fish was cooked, I put the broccoli in the frying pan with water and cooked until the water evaporated. Then added oil and the bowl of other ingredients and cooked them. Throughout all this, I see no way I could have missed if there was something else in the food, like an almond. After cooking, I put half the vegetable mix in a Tupperware container for the next day and half on a plate for that day. I put one salmon fillet in the leftover container and one on the plate, and I divided up the butter sauce. I ate, and it was delicious. The next day, I ate the leftovers straight from the Tupperware container, and something got in my mouth that was too hard to chew. I took the object out of my mouth, and it seemed to be a large seed of some kind. I showed it to my mom later, and she said it looked like an almond. How did the seed almond possibly sneak into the container without me noticing? I must have somehow put it in there. Where did it come from? Was it the core of the shallots? I thought I diced all of that. Was it a lemon seed? It looks too large and dark and hard to be a lemon seed. I chopped every ingredient and didn't notice this hard object until it appeared in my leftovers. Where did it come from? Edit. After reading the comments, I Google images of olive seeds, and that is most likely what it was. So it probably came in the olive container. The most plausible explanation is it slid out into the bowl with the olive brine. However, the seed is about the size of an olive, and this was a small container with about 7 olives, so it is still really weird that I didn't notice it. I work overnight at a hotel. If you do a job like this long enough, you are bound to see or hear something strange. One night, I was in the dining area beyond the front desk chatting with my coworker. We were the only employees on property. It was around 3 a.m. and everyone was asleep. In the course of our conversation, we started talking about the Bible. I mentioned the book of Revelation and asked if she had read it. I think she mentioned it was a very long time ago and she could hardly understand any of it. While I was rambling on, I noticed her looking out the window into the roundabout in front of the hotel where guests parked to check in. "What is that?" She pointed to the window. When I turned around, I noticed bright light shining into the lobby. I went out of the dining area to the lobby and peered outside. There were 2 cop RVs parked directly in front of the hotel with their high beams on. Whenever someone parks, it is always sideways in the roundabout, not facing the hotel, so their positioning was very odd. Each officer was just staring straight ahead, not talking or making any movement. It was either too dark to make out their features, or the bright light shining in made it impossible to make them out. I went back to talk to her for a few minutes, but was irritated that they had not budged. I decided to speak to them, and when I came to the sliding glass door, I saw each vehicle exiting onto the street in front of us in opposite directions, which is well over 100 yards away from the hotel through an immense parking lot. Somehow, they had traversed this distance in the amount of time it took me to walk up to the door, which was a few seconds. When I looked at my coworker, she just said, "Maybe we should talk about something else." Glitch at the grocery store? I've never posted here before, so I hope this is the right place for this. The other day, I was at the grocery store, Hannaford, for all my fellow New Englanders, when I noticed something strange. At first, I didn't think much of it, but the more it happened, the weirder it got. I kept seeing abandoned shopping carts throughout the store. Not just one or two, but 4 separate carts, each with a few random items in them, and no owner in sight. These weren't the usual stepped away for a second situations or carts left behind for restocking. Just completely deserted. I shop at the store regularly, and this is not something I've ever noticed happening before. Now, I know this isn't anything crazy or wild. It's not like I saw a UFO or stepped into another dimension. It's a totally mundane thing, but it was just odd enough to get my attention. At first, I brushed it off, but as I kept passing by the same carts, I realized they weren't moving. No one came back for them. They stayed exactly where they were. By the time I saw the 4th abandoned cart, I started realizing a pattern, so I took a picture and posted it on my private Snapchat story as a funny "what's going on" moment. But when I decided to go back and find the other carts to document them, they were all gone. Every single one. I had passed by them multiple times, and they never moved. But the second I went to take pictures, they just disappeared. And I guess what made it really odd was that after I posted it, a friend replied saying the exact same thing had happened to him. He had also noticed multiple abandoned carts at a different store, went to take a picture, and they vanished. That's what led me here. Has anyone else experienced something like this? A drawn-out version of this happened to me when I was in elementary school. For months, I would dream about this room I had never seen, with 2 windows and a bed in the corner, white curtains swaying gently in the breeze, while a golden sunlight filtered in as scattered beams. I would just stand in this peaceful place, looking around. I'd have this dream maybe once or twice a month, and I'd often just think back on this room in detail because it gave me such a lovely, safe feeling. It was one of those dreams where you end up waking too early and you instantly try to fall asleep again. It was kind of weird because while I had a few of the same recurring nightmares, I'd never had any dream at all that made me feel so happy. I feel like there's always some mix of anxiety or weird, unrealistic dream things happening that are neither scary nor happy. But in there, it was as if I was in a bubble where time didn't matter anymore. Anyways, we moved apartments, and I never had that recurring dream. Although I missed it, I eventually moved on. A few years later, I'm in middle school. On a summer Saturday afternoon, I was just standing in my room after my mom had opened the windows, entranced at how the little dust motes flickered in the sun and highlighted these beautiful rays of light from the window to the floor. And it hits me like a truck. That room in my dream was my bedroom this entire time. It wasn't until the room was exactly how I dreamed it that I realized. I just spun slowly, looking at my dresser, the trinkets I had on it, how you couldn't see the tiny rainbow speckles on my curtains from where I stood because of the sunlight. I never got close to them in my dreams, so I thought they were pure white. The freshly changed bedding my mom had put on earlier. For a few minutes before the light changed, I just stood there in bliss, my awe melting into that familiar sense of peace, safety, timelessness. My room never looked perfectly like that ever again, even though I'd wait every spring and summer, but wow, it was completely ethereal. Chipping in to say I get this a lot too, and I'm equally weirded out every time it happens. I've never been able to put into words exactly how it feels, but the comments prior to mine have done a good job explaining it. I thought about it, and I think it's a brain misfire that mixes up long-term and short-term memory. After caring for people with dementia for a long time, they do this thing called recollective confabulation, which is a long word for the area of their brain that stores short-term memory getting mixed up with the area that stores long-term memory. That's why they're always saying things like, "I've been here before," in places they've never been, or thinking that they're in a different decade to the one they're really in. I think that these little occurrences are some kind of confabulation. I say this because it doesn't feel the same as déjà vu, as someone pointed out. And since they're always about incredibly mundane things, such as a random conversation or walking in a hallway, i.e., not life-threatening, I don't think it's a secret superpower. I've yet to be able to actually use it to a useful degree. I have to be incredibly fast to even register it's happening and follow it, let alone have time to act on it. But why it's always in relation to a dream, I don't know. The confabulation idea doesn't explain why it always specifically focuses on something that was dreamt. It's horribly hard to actually document, because as mentioned, it's always regarding something mundane. And to do so, you'd have to log every single dream you have in the hope that several months later you may experience it. The difficulty is compounded by the fact that you never recall the dream until the exact moment you're seeing the dream play out in front of you. It's a strange glitch. In real life, this doesn't happen too often to me, luckily. But in dreams, this is an absolute staple, and it's disturbing as all hell. I have recurring nightmares of where I remember being a murderer, and remember having to go to an i.e. public library's bottom level, where the ideal place for me would be to hide and murder people. And often it's people my age, and sometimes even people I know. I am not a violent person in general. I don't go out of my way to hurt people. Quite on the contrary, I have spent some time with people who experienced war as soldiers and as civilians. I do martial arts, and I do have frequent fantasies of explaining borderline self-defense excess to the cops, though. You could say my imagination is strong for me. The creepiest part is how I can't just explain it away as, "Oh, I just had a crazy dream once and it freaked me out so much that I constantly have to think about it, and now I always dream the same thing." No, this is different. In my dreams, I'm not necessarily me every time. The general settings change as well. Sometimes I'm in an old school of mine, sometimes in some kind of castle, sometimes in a completely made-up district of my city. That made-up district I obviously also remember in every detail, so I wouldn't feel confused by the strange surroundings. But every time I find a rather empty and secluded part where I am sure people would come to for one reason or another, which is where I would await them, and it's always the bottom floor with worse lighting than the rest of the area. And to come to an end, let's talk about how I called it a nightmare. Technically, it isn't a nightmare. I actually straight up don't have them because I'm never afraid in my dreams. Ever. I feel strong sensations of having to act, even if it's about man-sized spiders, and I hate tiny ones already. But no fear, especially not parallelizing fear. So I go about murdering people in my dreams as if it was my job, or more like a great hobby of mine, all while not feeling any negative emotions, only a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction whenever I did it. This is the real nightmare. After waking up, having to endure the thought of my brain essentially fantasizing about mercilessly so many people in so many dreams in cold blood, and always being able to remember being a murderer. Remember ways of murdering people. Remember how this is all normal and fine. Nothing is normal. Nothing is fine. I don't hurt people anymore. I am supposed to be a good guy in real life. I love helping other people. I adopt pets. I am a blood, bone marrow, and organ donor. I help old people over the streets. I get people out of the way of blind people so they don't crash into each other. I have kids of my own. I teach kids at our community center. I would call myself a loving person in general. While my childhood was kind of fucked up in some ways, I have become very good with understanding, interpreting, and showing emotions. I would even go so far as saying that I'm a sensitive person. But in my dreams, it all goes bad. Very bad. I miss my comparatively innocent dreams of my childhood. I think I may have experienced a glitch in the Matrix. When I was between 8 and 10 years old, we were living in Gulfport, MS. Throughout childhood, my mom frequently took my brothers and me to the beach, like almost every weekend. I remember this story vividly as a memory, and also remember my family, people at church camp, and the news talking about it. One day at the beach, we ran into a woman with 2 little girls with her. They were carrying trash bags and very dirty. They were homeless, as I found out later, but didn't realize at the time. The older little girl looked to be my age. I remember playing in the sand with her, collecting seashells, running from the waves, etc. I don't remember much about the younger girl. I do vividly remember her asking to play with my bucket and shovel to build sandcastles with my little brothers. At one point, a man in a van pulled up along the road and approached the woman. Next thing I know, the mother was calling to the girls to come over. I remember the other one being called Beatrice, as she immediately responded to the name. Not long after, my mom gathered my brothers and me up to take us home. I went to wave goodbye to Beatrice, but she was no longer there. Neither was the man or the van. The woman and the younger girl were still on the beach, where the woman had been talking to the man. We went home, and I thought nothing else about it. Until a day or so later, when my parents were watching the news while I was getting ready for a bath. I heard the news say a homeless girl was missing, believed to have been kidnapped from the beach. Then I heard the name Beatrice. I tried to go into the living room to see what was going on, and I was immediately shushed and told to go get in the bathtub. I tried to tell my parents, I know her. That's my friend. My dad asked my mom what I was talking about, and my mother said, nothing. Eventually I took my bath and went to bed forgetting all about it, as I was excited to go to church camp the next weekend, so I was thinking of all the fun things we were going to do. I didn't hear anything else about it until I went to camp. As it happens, the church camp was near the same beach where I had met Beatrice. In fact, part of our activities were going to the exact same part of the beach where I met her. At least it seemed that way to my 8-year-old brain. Who knows though? It's a Long Beach. The area was literally called Long Beach. While at church camp during one of our outings to said beach, we were having a sandcastle building contest. While building my masterpiece, I heard my counselor talking with one of the other counselors. She was talking about a little homeless girl going missing from around here, and that they found her body. She had been raped and murdered. She even said the name Beatrice. I started freaking out and had to be taken back to the dorms. While I was being walked back to the dorms, I remember noticing a lot of police around. I don't remember what happened after that until I woke up in the middle of the night in hysterics and wet the bed. My counselor, bless that girl, was so sweet. She helped me clean up, changed my bedding, and stayed up with me all night until we could call my mom to come get me. I remember vividly as well. Her name was Sherry Carter, and she was my preacher's daughter. I went home after that and saw various news stories over the next few weeks about Beatrice's murder. As the story goes, the man that I saw in the van was a predator that saw they were homeless, stopped and offered the mother food and shelter, but for whatever reason wanted to take Beatrice with him to McDonald's. Just Beatrice. For some ungodly reason, this woman let him. She waited hours and they never returned. I guess at some point she contacted police or flagged someone down, I don't know. But within a few days, no more than a week, they found Beatrice's body. This was all over the news for a while after the murder. I remember hearing about it again when the new school year started, only these news reports were about finding the man and arresting him. This was a huge thing for Gulfport and Long Beach in the late 80s. Things like that just didn't happen. I tell you all of that to tell you this. While sitting on the couch watching old unsolved child murders and eating McDonald's, I remembered Beatrice. So I got on Google and started looking for anything on the case. Nothing. So I tried Brave. Nothing there either. No record of anything even close to my story happening there between 85 and 95 in Mississippi. How the fuck do I remember this so vividly across multiple weeks and months, and to this day, I still vividly remember this happening, but it never happened? Am I insane? A few years back, I went to a medium who speaks to those who have passed over. During my session with him, he informed me that my grandfather was there. He even gave me my grandfather's name. He told me that my grandfather wanted me to go to bingo and that he would make it worth my while. I used to go to bingo years ago, but have not in many, many years. He told me that my grandfather would give me the feeling when it was time to go. So that time arrived. I was washing dishes after supper one early evening, and there was a commercial on our local radio station about a bingo in my hometown, about an hour away, that was going to be quite the event. I brought it up to my husband and said, let's go to my parents and you can hang out with the boys. They were little guys at this time, and you can visit with my parents. So off we went, and I went to bingo and I won $200. On my arrival back into my parents' house, I announced that I won. Everyone was excited, but of course wanted to see the money. Before I went to show them the money, I had an unbelievable feeling of freezing. I asked everyone if they felt that cold breeze that just went through. Everyone was talking to each other. No one seemed to have heard me. I said it again and everyone kept talking. I felt a little weird and asked the third time and said it quite loud. Again, no response from anyone. My parents, my husband, and my 2 boys were all talking amongst themselves, as if I wasn't even there. While the whole time I was feeling this freezing breeze all around me. At the 4th time, as I'm trying to get everyone's attention, I'm no longer cold, and everyone now is looking at me. I asked them if anyone was hearing me talk, and if they felt the freezing breeze go through, and no one heard me talk or felt a cold breeze. I was a bit weirded out, but continued to reach into my front pocket of my pants and take out the folded $200 all in $20 bills. As I unfolded the money, smack dab in the middle of the folded money was a bridge of a fiddle. This money was counted out to me by the bingo attendant, and I also counted it out before I placed it into my pocket. There 100% was absolutely no bridge of a fiddle anywhere near that money. I cannot explain to you how shocked I was to try and figure out how that bridge of a fiddle got into my pocket, let alone in between $10, $20 bills. Now to get a bit more freaky here, my grandfather was a well-known fiddle player in my hometown with the locals when he was alive. My father had his father's, the same grandfather, 2 fiddles in safekeeping, and we were always warned as young kids to never touch the fiddles, and my boys were always warned to never touch the fiddles. My father was always scared they were going to get broken. As I was in shock, looking at this bridge, I kept asking everyone in the room if they put this in my pocket somehow, knowing in my head that there was no way I wouldn't feel someone's hand go into my pocket to place this there. And of course, everyone was telling me, no, they didn't put it in my pocket. My father was very concerned at this moment and told us all to follow him to his bedroom. He took the 2 fiddles out of their safe place, opened them up, and lo and behold, one of the 2 fiddles was missing a bridge. I cannot explain this story. The only thing I can say is that my grandfather would have had something to do with it, if he could. I do believe that during the few seconds, moment that I felt the freezing breeze, could it then have been when the bridge was placed in my pocket? My sister and I love going geocaching. Some time ago, maybe 1 or 2 years, we wanted to do a night cache in the woods. Sadly, I do not remember the name of that cache nor the location or description. I only remember it in the middle of a forest. The gravel road to it made a slight turn to the left and was clear and wide. The path to the cache itself was overgrown and went to the right. We took that path, followed the reflector signs that should lead us. As it is a night cache, you do it at night, but it is located in the woods, so it very shortly became somehow too spooky for us. We heard steps next to us and feared it would be an animal like a deer or a wild boar, so we called that one the boar cache to know which one we mean. We are not the sporty kind, so after a short while we broke up to do it another time. We hurried back to our car that was in a parking lot nearby. At the gravel road, I made out a camera hanging in a tree. We joked about being on the camera now, and what the owner of the cam might think of us now walking here in the middle of the night. At the beginning of this year, it was January as I was just told, we tried another night cache. Its name is something about a UFO with a nice backstory, so we gave it a try. The gravel road was a little overgrown and went straight into the woods, soon turning into a muddy trail. Snow was lying on that road. Sadly, we could not follow that cache very far. Trees had fallen over the path and blocked it. On at least one of them we could make out the reflector sign that should lead our way, so we couldn't follow that trail further. My sister wrote a message to the cache owner about the situation right after we got back to the car, containing the cache name. Yesterday we wanted to try that UFO cache again. Time has passed. Maybe the owner was looking after the cache. The last log said it was found this year, so we got there again. On Google Maps I saw there is a good parking spot nearby. Last time we parked directly at the gravel road. As I reached the parking lot, I was confused. It looked exactly like the one of the boar cache we tried long ago. But that could not be, because the village we drove through to get to the UFO cache was exactly the one we came through in January this year. As I got ready for the walk, I heard noises around me in the wood like steps, cracking twigs, some flying animals, owls I guess. I got that spooky feeling again. We went along the street to the gravel road. A few steps into it, we stood paralyzed and looked at the surroundings. The gravel road was clear and wide and made a slight turn to the left. The path to the cache was overgrown and turned to the right. I could make out the first reflector, and even the camera was still hanging in that tree. We returned to our car. This was definitely not the cache we wanted to do this evening. My sister checked for the message she wrote to the cache owner. Maybe we confused the caches, remembered them wrong. But no, the message to the cache owner had exactly the name of that cache we wanted to do with the description of the situation. We checked the location, looked for another entrance to the cache, but nothing turned up. We still have no explanation on how this could happen. We both have the same memories about the two different caches and the events, the roads of the caches, and the road we took in January to get there. We are somehow used to experience glitches in the Matrix, but this one totally caught us off guard. And the question still is, which one is the real one with the UFO? We still really want to do that one, hopefully this time without the fallen trees that blocked the way. Package vanished and reappeared a few days later on doorstep. I recently stumbled upon this subreddit and thought this would be a fitting experience to share here. Last fall, my mom ordered 3 rolls of string, which we use as candle wicks. We have a homemade candle business. The package arrived about a week later, and I retrieved it from the doorstep and brought it into the garage, where my mother was working on a mold. She tells me to put the box on the shelf where we store all of our candle making supplies, so I did. Fast forward a couple days later, my mom is grabbing a fragrance dropper bottle from the shelf when she notices that the box of new string I placed isn't there. She calls me to the garage and asks if I moved the box of string, to which I respond, I didn't. Why would I? We both distinctly remembered that I had placed the box on the shelf a couple days ago, and she claimed that was the last time she saw the box. We rummaged through the garage, behind the shelf, in the desk drawers, but this box of string vanished and was nowhere to be found. We even looked in our rooms and spent some time thinking of possible places it may have went, but nothing seemed to add up, so we decided to take the hit and planned to reorder the string when our current roll started to run low. Another few days passed. After my classes that day, I came home, made myself lunch, and decided to work on my assignments for a couple hours before leaving to go see some friends. As I was leaving the house, I opened the front door, and to my surprise, the same package I placed on the supply shelf a couple days ago was on our doorstep. Confused, I called my mom and told her what had just happened, and she was baffled. When she got home later that night, we looked over the order history on the computer to confirm we weren't both going crazy, and saw that there was only one string order purchased within the last 3 months, which was the package I placed on the supply shelf the day it arrived. To this day, we occasionally talk about this moment, yet still have no explanation as to how this package vanished and magically reappeared at our doorstep. I died last night, but I'm still here. So this actually happened last week. It just took me some time to come to terms with it. I got a phone call from my next-door neighbor late in the evening asking if I can help him move a mattress into his upstairs. His mom is ill and has a big heavy sleep number bed. I of course ran over to help because they're great neighbors. I get over there and his friend, who is also a priest, was there to help. I helped them figure out how to separate the mattress from the bed so we could fit it upstairs. We get it all moved up and back in place when my neighbor asks if I can help them move an armoire upstairs too. I think nothing of it, and we pull it out of his travel trailer and start bringing it up the front stairs of his house. This is where I died. The front stairs are 11 steps. I was on the lower end of the armoire, about 6 steps up, when my neighbor and his friend lose a handle on the armoire and it comes crashing down on me and I fall backwards towards the pavement. I then wake up in my dining room to my phone ringing and my wife asking me if I'm going to answer the phone. It's my neighbor asking me if I can help move a bed upstairs for his mom. I go over there and meet his priest friend again, as this has been the first time I met him. I say I can help with the bed, but I cannot help with the armoire. My neighbor was like, "How'd you know about the armoire?" I then proceeded to tell them, "I'm pretty sure I just died." I spent the next hour talking with the priest. He had so many questions. My neighbor didn't believe it until I described the upstairs bedroom in perfect detail, down to the metal mattress frame on the floor and the intricate headboard leaning against the wall, and I had never been upstairs in their house before. The priest asked me what I saw after I died. I told him I never actually died. Before it happened, I woke up at my dining room table. Something is wrong with my girlfriend. Me, male 26, and my girlfriend, female 25, have been living together in an apartment for 2.5 years. Everything has been normal until quarantine started, around 4 weeks ago, when I started noticing some odd things. For instance, for the last 3 weeks or so, my girlfriend has been putting sugar in her morning coffee. While throughout our entire relationship, she's always been very much against it. It may seem like a small detail, but she's always been complaining about how I know what real coffee is since I put quite a lot of sugar. On the first day that I saw her drinking coffee with sugar, I asked her why would she do that, and she looked at me weirded out and said something like, "What are you talking about? I've always been putting sugar in my coffee." I felt a bit confused for a moment, but then we started talking about some other things, so I didn't think any more about it until the morning after, when she did the exactly same thing and had once again the same reaction. Fast forward a few days and another odd thing happened. We were having sex and she suddenly suggested a sex pose that we had already tried once, but it had gone wrong and it hurt her a lot, so we had simply decided not to try it anymore. Naturally, I was very surprised with her suggestion and reminded her about the time when it went wrong, and she just completely dismissed it, saying that I probably mixed her up with some ex-girlfriend or that I was just tripping. We then did the pose and we actually enjoyed it. Today, the weirdest thing happened, which is the reason I'm writing this post. In the afternoon, I was working at home. I'm employed as a PhD student at the computer science department of a university. When my girlfriend asked me what's up with a guy who I've never heard of before, I asked her who was she referring to, and she said, "Well, it's that colleague of yours who you always talk about, the one from the company where you are employed at." I froze and asked her to repeat, and she said the exactly same thing all over again. Then I told her that I don't work at any company, nor have I ever worked at any company since I started a PhD straight after my master's degree. At this point, she also completely froze, and we were just staring at each other, completely confused and shocked for a few moments. She then asked me, "What the hell is going on?" and I reminded her about the coffee thing, and about the sex pose, and that I don't know anymore what is going on. At this point, she started crying too, and asked what is wrong with us. Nor she, nor me, nor anyone in both families have ever had any mental problems in the past. We don't know what to do about this. Can anyone explain what's wrong with us? Some people in the comments for that post suggested checking for carbon monoxide, but personally, I think she was switched from another version from another universe. Me and my daughter witnessed something surreal and unexplainable today. For a few weeks before this, while out driving, I've observed pedestrians standing at the traffic lights who will reach into their pocket and look at their phone as they're walking across the road when the light goes green. Nothing significant or strange about this, just one of those mundane things you notice while going about your day. Today, I was driving with my daughter and we stopped at a red light at a crossing, and there was a man standing there. Nothing out of the ordinary. Denim jacket, black cap, glasses, around 6 feet. I thought I'd try to weird out my young daughter. She's 5, so I knew I was going to blow her damn mind. So I said, "See that man?" When the walking man goes green and he starts to walk across, he'll reach into his pocket and pull out his phone and start looking at it. Watch and see. As he walks across, he reaches into his pocket, but then immediately takes his hand out and looks and points right at me with his mouth open, smiling, like a gotcha stance. Of course, my daughter found this absolutely hilarious, and I sat there completely mind blown. I must have sat there in silence looking at him walk across for the next 10 seconds. I drove on and had a look at him as I drove past, and he was smirking/laughing. I've been playing it through my head all day. The windows were up. The radio was on. I wasn't shouting. My voice was not even remotely raised. He must have been about 15 to 20 feet away from me. I can't figure out at all how he could have heard me. It's literally impossible. How did he know I was trying to predict he'd reach into his pocket for his phone? The only even remote possibility I can think of is that he has had the same observation as me and thought I might be thinking the same thing, so just went for it. But realistically, what are even the chances of this? Pretty sure I slipped in the shower and died. I know this story is going to sound weird and crazy, but hear me out. I'm not too familiar with this subreddit, but a friend of mine who's always talking about metaphysics, Twilight Zone, simulation type stuff, loves this sub and keeps telling me to post this. In fact, no doubt he'll read this. Hey Zane lol. Anyways, here's my story. 2 weeks ago, I was about to get ready for a party at 6. Just before I started getting ready, one of my friends messaged me, super excited because a boy she's had a crush on for the last 4 years finally asked her out, and he was coming with her to the party. While I was texting her back, my younger brother walked into my room and asked if I could drive him to his friend's house, which I agreed to do. Then I went to the bathroom to have a shower and do my makeup. So I got in the shower, but when I went to wash my hair, I realized that my conditioner was finished. I was pretty ticked off because I'd only bought it a couple of days beforehand, and it's an expensive brand. My younger sister always uses up my things, so I knew she'd used it all. She'd also trashed the bathroom, leaving water everywhere and her dirty towel on the floor. I was pissed off and was about to get out of the shower in order to tell her off and get some more conditioner. But as I went to get out, I realized at the last second that she'd kicked the grippy mat we have at the bottom of our shower tub up. Our shower tub is super slippery without the grip mat. So as I went to step out, my foot slipped and I fell with my neck down onto the edge of my tub. Time seemed to slow down in my head, and I remember my last thought was, wow, this is how I die? How stupid. But here's the thing, at the moment of impact, I woke up in a start, back in my bed. I know it sounds stupid and cheesy, like something from a dumb Netflix show, but there's literally no other way to describe what happened. I was lying in bed right before I got up to shower the first time, but I don't remember falling asleep. And the thing is, I've been a lucid dreamer for the last 5 or so years, and if this was a dream, it was way more vivid than anything I've ever experienced. What weirded me out, though, was that the exact same friend who texted me the first time messaged me after I woke up to tell me that the boy she had a crush on had asked another girl out, and she was pretty bummed about it and didn't want to come to the party. I was weirded out that there was some similarity between that and the dream, but didn't think much of it at first. As I went to reply, my younger brother came in to ask if I would take him to his friend's house. All the blood drained from my face. He just stood in the doorway looking confused and asked me what was wrong. I rushed into the bathroom, feeling like I was losing my fucking mind, and went to check the conditioner bottle. I know this sounds completely crazy, but the bottle was finished just like before, and the grip mat was kicked up. At that point, I went to lie back down in bed and texted my friends to tell them that I wouldn't be going to the party. Sorry if my story's no good. I'm not much of a writer, but at least now you can stop telling me to post this here. Zane Omeo. That's it for today, guys. Did you ever had a glitch? Share in the comments. Thank you for watching. Bye.